Hi guys, welcome back. It's Tutor Kenny, and today we're going to have a very short discussion. Today is meant to have a very short discussion on the depth of perception. And without wasting time, let's get started. So I got a very important question for you. How do you judge when it's the right time to cross the road? I know people be like, "Oh, Kenny, this is too much. You don't get to teach us how to cross the road." Well, I'm not teaching you how to cross the road, but I'm making you aware of what's going on while you judge whether or not it's the right time to cross the road. So this is basically what I'm going to do. What I'm going to see today is the judgment to the brain level. So what happens, what goes on until you decide now it's safe to cross the road. So I'm not teaching you how to cross the road, yes, but I show you like what goes um, on the brain level. So are you a driver? Are you a driver? If yes, when do you know like it's the right time to overtake? So when do you know is the right time to overtake? So again, I'm not teaching you how to drive. I'm not teaching you how to overtake. I just want to try to make sense on what you're thinking while you are trying to overtake. So all of this we're going to discuss together, and make sure at the end of the video you drop the answers. I mean, as we're moving at the end of the video. So today we are discussing about the depth of perception, and let's look this to let's walk along these pictures here. You see this picture is the picture of the bridge, and what I want you to appreciate is the distance between from this point of this part of the bridge to this point. Ideally should be the same to this one to here and here to here until you move along the bridge, the whole rest of the bridge. The distance is actually the same between the sides of the bridge. But if you pay much attention, you will understand that you will see that this part of the bridge looks like almost together, almost very very close together as compared to this, even though we know that the whole bridge is uniform. I assume it is uniform, but you see like the front part of the bridge appears wider compares to the the other part of the bridge, even though we know that the distance between the sides of the bridge is constant. Another thing here, see, this is a motor vehicle. It's a car, and it appears this little bit bigger or something, and we'll have this very 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 small car. It doesn't mean it looks very small, but doesn't mean it's that small. It looks that small, but doesn't mean it is that small. But perhaps these two cars perhaps are from the same size. They have the same size, and the one which is very very like closer to us, it looks bigger, and the other one looks very 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 small. Another another example. Let's take a look at this picture of here. So we see that this is a finger, and behind the finger is something like a house or something. Is a house, yes. But what I want you now to pay much attention on is the size of the finger. You see the size of the finger appears the finger here appears like taller um than the house. The finger appears taller than the house. You see, like it is that taller than the house. But the reality is, the finger is very, very, very small. When you bring them together, when you bring the finger and the house together, where you cannot even compare, because the finger is very, very small. But from this point, the finger looks like almost of the same height as the house, but that's not really the reality. That's not really right. So what do these all pictures try to implicate? What do they try to tell us? So these pictures, they tell us something very very important. They tell us something very 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 important. So The brain has got ways of calculating distances. It has got ways of calculating distances. So what it basically does, it compares two objects. It does a lot of calculations, and then it gives you answers. It gives you answers. So once your brain like see two objects, it goes through a series of calculations and calculations after calculations, and then it goes another calculation. After all this calculation, now it gives you answers. Remember, what we're trying to check here is the distance between objects. So when your brain sees two objects, now between two objects or one object, for example, what the object that you already know, well, it calculates the distance between the object and you. But because you're not a robot, because we humans are not robots, and we are not given that distance between us and the object in terms of number. Listen, we have an object right in front of us, for example, and or at a certain distance that we don't know what distance that is. So the brain has learned is like it has automatic way of calculating the distance between us and between you as a person and the object, and it gives you the answer. But all of these like occur in microseconds. Within a fraction of second, everything is calculated. But the important thing to know is the brain will never give you this distance in terms of number. It will never give you in terms of number because you're not a robot. So it gives you in terms of size. And this is what I mean. You have a friend. Maybe assume this is your friend, and your friend is, for example, 6 feet tall. And so when you see your friend is like the height has decreased much, maybe from 6 feet to 3 feet, where something is, so it means something is going on. So what is going on is your brain is trying to give you like a clue about the distance between you and your friend. So your friend is 6 feet tall, but now you see that your friend is around 3 feet. So that gives you a clue on the distance. So that's how our brains are trained to calculate the distance. So they calculate the distance between you and an object, and then it gives you that distance in terms of the size of an object. It would give you in terms of number, but you are not a robot that will be given the number. So for example, it's maybe 20 meters, and then it converts that distance into the size perspective. So you see this one, and then you see this is at a distance, at a certain distance. So this is also what happens with also this picture that first thing first, you need to have a picture or a height or size of that object in your mind. You need to have it. For example, your friend, you needed to know that you scan your friend at fasting, and then the next time you meet, or the next time you see him or her, like, okay, he is supposed to be 6 feet tall, but now I see he's around maybe 3 feet taller. So I know that, okay, so he or she might be at a very distant distance. So this is also what happens here. Like that the car should be like this big, but why is this very very small? Then that's your brain tells you, okay, this is small. Doesn't mean that the car is small, but it is because it at a certain distance, and your brain is trying to give you the clue of a distance between this car and that one, and it puts that distance in terms of the size. Yeah, so that's also that's what is happening. But note that you should note that a person is not aware of this all these calculations, is not aware of all these calculations, even you are not aware of the size. So you like don't think about it, you just find it like, okay, he or is at a certain distance, he is at a certain distance without even knowing. So we don't consciously think about all this, it happens automatically, and remember, it happens within fraction of seconds, you don't even think about it anymore. And then now, this is just to summarize what I was talking about. Like, like maybe you are at a constant distance with an object. You see it is bigger, but the moment the object is moving away from you, or you are moving away from the object, which means that the distance between you and the object is getting longer, means the size is decreasing. Your brain is calculating that distance, and then it puts that distance into the size perspective, into the size aspect of the dimension. So actually, what I'm trying to imply here is that the size of the object does not change throughout the distances. It doesn't change. So the object stays remains the same. The size remains the same. But as you're moving away from the object becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. And remember, it doesn't mean that the object is smaller, but it's the distance that is getting longer between you and an object. So all of this is what we call now the depth of perception. This is what we refer to a depth of perception. So what a depth of perception is, well, is the ability to perceive a relative distance in or a relative distance of objects in space, in 3D dimension, in 3 dimension space. The ability to determine, the relative distance between objects in 3 dimension is what is referred to as the depth of perception. So same applies here. Like we know that the distance between these sides of the bridge is the maintained throughout. The distance is the same, but how we perceive is, we see this end of the bridge like very very closer compared to this end. So that's your brain trying to calculate the distance between, and then it gives that distance in terms of the size of the objects. So it is very important, as always we try to think of these two. So it is meant to be protective, it is meant to be a protective effect. So I always try to imagine like how we were made to adapt in the kingdom and Maria. And then we know sometimes you were, living in with animals, dangerous animals, for example, and sometimes you want to estimate the distance between us and these dangerous animals so that we can take actions. And so how we calculate this distance is by using this depth of perception, and the distance is put into the aspect in terms of the size of the object or the size of that animal. So it is another way of surviving in Kingdom and Maria, and it is meant for safety, and it is meant for safety. So you guys, we sometimes you have to be grateful with our God, because the God has created us in a very special way. Imagine all these features were, we were created like perfect with all these abilities just in one day. Remember, a human being was just created in one day, so with all these features put together. And I it's so funny because I'm trying to think, if you were given chance to create a human, if you were there in the day of creation, for example, and you were given chance to create a human, would you remember to give these features to us, or we would just be like wondering nowadays we wouldn't be having these features? At least if you were given chance to create. So God is like, he has made us so we're so perfect. Yeah, we are so much perfect in terms. He was very very perfect in terms of creation. And because you see all of these features, we are exploring day to day, we are exploring how we were made from all those days. But remember, we are using this much time to think about how we were created, and remember we were just created in one day. So it's so much amazing, and we need to be grateful with our God. So why is this depth of perception important? Well, the knowledge of depth of perception is very important because it helps us with daily activities. We can't mention all the activities that we are using the depth of perception, but just a few activities like crossing the road. Like, when do you know that the right time to cross the road is after you have looked the left and right and right and left again, and you have seen that there is no car at all, or the car is seen as very like distant. It has a very like certain distance. And how do you know that it's at that certain distance? Because of the size. So you're looking at the size of the car, and then you know, okay, it will be at a very distant way, and then you cross the road. So that's how you decide whether or not the time for you to cross the road. And when this calculation goes wrong in your brain, when this calculation goes wrong in your brain is when we have these accidents. So a lot of accidents happen because of poor calculation. So we are miscalculating this distance between us and the object. Sometimes you see the object the car, for example, motorbike is at a, it is far away from you, but in reality it is very like maybe not very close, but it is closer than you originally thought it is. So sometimes you get errors in this calculation, and this is what we sometimes it's just poor judgment by drivers, but sometimes can also be due to errors in calculation between in your brain in terms of depth of perception. So arts like activities like painting portraits, for example, well, they people who are painting, they apply that concept of depth of perception. But as always, as we are saying, people are not consciously thinking about the depth of perception, but the application doesn't lie. For example, you see this is a woman over here, and you see there is another woman over here, but this woman is like shorter compared to this one. But this, like, the height of this woman does not define actual height, because we know it's due to depth of perception that our brains is calculating this distance between this woman and this woman, and it puts that distance in terms of the size. For this matter now is the height of this woman over here. So also the artists who are making this paint, they maintain that depth of the perception, sometimes even without knowing. And lastly, in sports, well, I'm not a fan of Manchester United, but I really like this goal by Alejandro Garnacho. This goal. It's not. I mean, it's not new. I mean, we know this famous goal by Cristiano Ronaldo, and let's watch this bicycle kick goal, and then we have something to learn from it. Well, what we want to discuss about from this picture, from this goal, from this video, is that how can a person estimate when is the right time to jump? Look at him. Look, how does he know that it's the right time to jump? Like, when I'm jumping now, I will kick the ball, I will get the ball right here. Or how does he know, like, the ball will land at this particular place or particular space? And that is also a depth of perception. So the knowledge of the depth of perception is so much applied in a lot of activities, a lot of daily activities, but we underestimate it because we are not consciously aware of how we calculate. So next time you want to cross the road, you are applying the concept of depth of perception. And um, uh, and that is it from today's discussion concerning the depth of perception. And don't forget to subscribe, and see you next time. Alla próxima.